Thank you for coming to Waves mutual support session. We try and do a few of these every year where we get topics from you all on things that you are interested in learning about and helping each other about. And so I'm going to take some of the time today to talk about topics and get input from you on topics you might like to hear about in the future. This session is being recorded. It will be on our website as well as a copy of the PowerPoint. So you will have all the slides. When we get to the portion of the presentation on how to use Canva, you'll be able to access that later. So you don't necessarily need to take notes, and you'll be able to share this with others who weren't able to come. I'm Elizabeth Hale. I am one of the board members of the Washington Area Village Exchange. I also help run a village in Bethesda Metro Area Village. And so I always have many of the same questions that you all do. And we have many people here that are volunteers with their villages. Or staff. I also see Layla here, who is the board chair this year of the Washington Area Village Exchange, and works with her own village. And I want to put a plug in for everybody that doesn't know already, and I'm going to try and put the link in the chat to Wave's website. You want to keep an eye out there. We're going to have signups if the registration isn't there already for our in-person conference. So we do this once a year. It's October 14th. It will again be in Silver Spring at the Civic Center there, which is really easy to get to. And it is such a great opportunity to come in person for sessions like this where we help each other. Other sessions where we have speakers, it's really great. So make sure to keep an eye out there and for your email for signing up for that. Hold on, we just have a few more people coming in. So what I want to do is I want to take the beginning portion of our session today to talk about tips on newsletters that you all might have for each other. How you run your village newsletter, if you have a good way of doing it, and if you have questions for others. And so the second part will then be a tutorial specifically on Canva. Canva is a program that some people use to easily put newsletters together. It's not something that everybody uses. My village, we have a volunteer newsletter editor, and she uses Microsoft Word. And so there's lots of different ways to do it, but this is just one easy way. And we have Katie Ostrowski here, who put together the presentation on Canva, and she is going to run that part of it, show you how to do it, and take questions. So that's going to be on the second portion. And Katie, I'll introduce you when we get to that part. So the best, since we have so many people here, sometimes we break into breakout rooms and sort of gather questions that way. But I'm not going to do that just because you all might want to hear something else that somebody's saying in the other room. So what I'm going to do, you guys are all muted, but go ahead and use the chat or the raise hand function, and I'll call on you. And the first thing I'd like to cover is what you were hoping to learn today, whether there's a specific question that you have, or what you wanted to go over. So go ahead, take a second to put that in the chat or raise your hand, and I will call on you if there's anybody that has something. Do we just want to learn about newsletters super generally? Do you want to see the other, possible newsletter templates? And let me go ahead while you guys are thinking. In our chat here, I'm also going to add a link, which I'll show, to some sample newsletters that people sent around. Okay, so some things are coming in here. General ideas of what works and what doesn't. Oh yeah, your raised hand. If you want to raise your hand, it's under React, or just go like this and I'll see you. Specific, you're planning to see how others use Canva. What is this question? Support efficiencies. What does that mean? Oh, that's Kate McGrail. see here.
I think I had a typo. Thanks, Elizabeth. Just avoid
Sure.
duplications.
What does that mean? Newsletters?
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? What you mean? I'm not clear. So if we're talking about creating newsletters, you're wanting to avoid duplicating work within the village.
I guess you guys should consider. I'm just kind of watching to see how I can support you guys not having to recreate things from scratch or
Okay.
duplicating things.
Not
Sorry.
create
Yes.
having to create things from scratch. Okay, yeah, that's really important. Somebody uses MailChimp and Canva for making flyers and graphics. Okay, just interested in um, oh yes, and thank you so much, Eddie, for reminding me of this. And I'll explain more when Katie, when I introduce her, she is with the Village Support Network. So I should just go ahead and explain what that is because the Village Support Network and Wave collaborated on putting this together. So Katie's a board member with the Village Support Network and has been volunteering there since 2021. And Village Support Network was previously known as RAVE, and that is the way that I have been referring to them forever, which was the Rockville Area Village Exchange. But they work more broadly now throughout Montgomery County, and they're a volunteer-led nonprofit organization like all of you are that helps grow villages and helps developing villages. So they've given operational support, they've given out grant money to various villages, and so they are eager to help with things like this, sort of how to, anything that can help villages. And thank you, Eddie, for reminding me. Okay, do most villages post their newsletter online? All right. Let's see. And then there's one really specific question about Canva. Okay, that's good to know. So I think what I'm going to do, oh wait, another one came up. Another person uses Publisher. I don't even know what that is. And now uses Canva for one pagers and rack cards. Okay, great. I think we'll probably dive into Canva sooner than I thought, Katie. But let me go ahead and share my screen. These are sample newsletters. And actually, I think I'm going to need to open them up one at a time that various villages sent to us to be able for you guys to look at. They're in the shared folder that I put in the chat. And right now, why can't I open this? But I just wanted to show them so that we could sort of know what we were all talking about at the same time. And I don't know if I can share them. Let's see here. Can you guys see with a thumbs up the Capitol Hill Village newsletter? Yeah, okay. Um, So this one is way fancier. Like I said, my village uses Word. So our village does not have it in a newsletter format a newspaper format where you're jumping to continued stories on other pages. So I wouldn't even begin to know how to do that. And I'm curious to see if Canva does that. But this, has it in the column format and everything. Essentially like a newsletter. Um, One downside for me, I guess, is well, I mean, I'm not gonna say it's a downside, but anyway, so that's one way to do it. Let me get to low link. Can you see low link now? Okay, great. So this one I like a little better. I feel like it's a little easier to read when it's across and it's not in a newspaper format, but that just might be me personally. Um, I like the boxes because then you know that you're jumping to a new article, and I might steal that idea. You're going to have everybody's going to have access to these on our website as well as if you go directly to the Google Drive. Reston for a lifetime. This one almost looks like it's sent out as an email rather than an attachment. Is anybody from Reston here? Go ahead and unmute yourself. And I know a lot of you, because I get some other village newsletters, do them by email. Like Arlington, I get yours, and I think it's super easy to read. And this is Kate McGrail's from Suburban Hospital. So it's a little bit different than a Village one, but the same idea in that it has events. And then you can click on the, um, hot links to get to their website to be able to sign up for things. Okay. So there's a few others in there, but I'm going to stop sharing. And I want to start off then with the questions. And it's not me and Katie that have the answers. It's all of you. So I would say, who here has used Canva and doesn't like it and is looking for something else? Anybody? No, okay. Well, we will learn more about it. Who has another, okay, somebody loves Canva. Who, in addition, other than Canva, has anything else that they want to recommend using? I do not recommend using Microsoft Word. This makes it, we within the Village, because we've used it for 10 years, know how to add photos and graphics within it, et cetera. But then I have to make it into a PDF. And okay, go ahead, Caroline.
Yeah, we use Microsoft Word, and I agree. It works, but it doesn't look very professional. I've taken 2 classes on Photoshop and I'm still completely confused. It's not user friendly, but I would say that some people who hire people to do their newsletters use Photoshop. Photoshop has a new program called Photoshop Express, Photoshop Express. It's really easy to use. However, I stopped using it because it does not allow you to put links in very easily. There's a couple hacks to do that, but it was too difficult. So Canva, I've tried it. I think it's a little bit limited, but I'm here to find out if it might work better.
Okay, these are great tips. Does anybody else use Photoshop or Photoshop Express and have any tips on that? Okay, the other ones mentioned were Affinity and Publisher and Scribus. And I'm going to leave last to talk about later using Club Express or / Run My Village directly. Kelly Reed, go ahead and unmute.
Back in my prior life, we did a print newsletter regularly, but we used Adobe InDesign for the layout and the text, Photoshop just for the graphics. Things may have changed with Adobe in the last 5 to 8 years. And I've also used Publisher to create a small newsletter, not necessarily the easiest, but part of the Word, Microsoft 360 suite. So if you have the right suite, it's free. But I've heard a lot of good things about Canva, so that's one I want to use. And then of course MailChimp and Constant Contact, they have a built-in email communication bit. But if you want something that looks professional, I'm thinking Canva has gotten such good reviews. That's why I'm here. I want to learn about that.
Great. Yeah, and I will say that many of you are mentioning that while you might use something else, then you're going ahead and using MailChimp or something like that to send out what you've created, which absolutely makes sense. And that actually is what we do. We use Club Express just for sending it out to our database, but we're not creating our newsletter within it. It's super clunky and cumbersome. But I know that some of us are sort of stuck using it. Okay, Publisher with some, yes.
This is Leila. I had a couple of things to add. We use the was it Monkey? We use MailChimp for a lot of our things, but we also print out our newsletter because we do still do what we call Pony Express for some of our members to hand deliver. So with whatever format we discuss and with Canva, that opportunity to be able to print out, so that sometimes affects how much color you're saturating in things when you're working print. The other thing, across all, there's a tool in Canva, there's a tool in Word, things like this to make sure that your newsletters are accessible. Because sometimes if a newsletter looks wonderful and fancy, you can find that it's not accessible for your members to be able to read and follow cleanly. So if somebody could go over those tools, I'm basically familiar with Canva, but for everyone, I'm not assuming that everyone's available for those tools, familiar with those tools, both in Word and in Canva and other publishing
That's a great point.
platforms. Thank
That's
you.
a really great point. Thank you. Mary Jane?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we have used Publisher, and I know Publisher's been mentioned several times in the chat, and we understand it is no longer going to be supported by Microsoft starting next year. So we are transitioning to Affinity, which we understand was purchased by Canva last year. Maybe it's the other way around, but I think they were purchased by Canva. It's a British platform. We have somebody here at Lake of the Woods who knows how to use it and has convinced us that this is the way to go. But it's part of Canva, part of the Canva family. So we're interested in sort of seeing how Canva works and if we can use this Affinity as well.
This is really good info, and I don't want to make Katie research this at the last second, but I'm interested to find out how Affinity is connected, and or is what we're going to learn about Canva also be able to be used there. Thank you for pointing out. Yeah, people mentioned Publisher is going to be discontinued. Another person mentioned Scribus. Is there anybody here that's been using it and has any tips with that?
I was the one that said I've used Scribus, but it's like a Publisher program. It's a free version.
Okay.
But it's pretty complex. You need to have some background knowledge. And we've actually stopped doing our main quarterly newsletter because we were finding nobody was reading it. So we've gone to more of a weekly article in our events mail that we send out through Helpful Village. And then we just do that through Helpful Village.
That is a really good point. And I'm making some notes here for some discussion topics we'll have in a minute after we get through the other publishing programs. Let's see here. Which one? Okay, so I'm going to be interested in, Katie, maybe you can just talk about this. Which ones have fees and not? Of course, for us, Microsoft Word is free and we already are paying our fee for Club Express. So I hate to go and start using something else that I have to pay for. And Layla put in here that you can obtain free Canva Pro memberships as 501c3. So that would be great, Layla, if you want to put anything in the chat later about how to access that or anything. Jean C, I see that you have your hand raised. Do you want to?
Yeah, I was just going to say what you just mentioned is that so we have a nonprofit pro Canva account and we use it all the time for newsletters and everything, even though we're looking at Affinity for our I'm sorry, for flyers, even though we're looking at Affinity for our actual quarterly newsletter. But it was really great because we already had the Canva nonprofit membership. We were able to then access the Affinity software. The only difference is instead of being in the cloud, you download the Affinity software onto your desktop. So but they both have teams, and so if you set it up, we're still digging into how to do it right, but you can set it up so that everybody can see the documents, and if somebody leaves the team, you don't lose it. Took us a little while to figure that part out, but anyway, there's a lot there that's really helpful.
That sounds huge. It sounds like it could be a standalone topic at our conference because this is all way more advanced than I know how to do. I wanted to pick up on a couple questions people had about whether people post their newsletters online and or do people mail them out. it seems like, yeah, then you might be looking at different types of programs. For us, we email out to, several hundred people our newsletter every other month. I expect that some individuals are printing it, and other people are just paging through and reading it and putting it aside or not reading it. So I actually send out in between frequent emails that are much shorter about events. We do not mail anything due to the cost. I'd be totally interested in a waiving on how many people mail out. And I'm just going to really quick page through. So keep your hand up. Okay, well, it's more than I thought from the people that I can see. Okay, and Carrie is saying in the chat, they do both. They post a PDF online and email it out. Yeah, and so our PDFs go up on our website as well after we email it. And some people just mail to those who don't have computers, which is not as big of a cost. Yeah. Yeah, so many of you are doing all. So that's a good point, Katie, to know that some people are going to go ahead and print it out as well. And then they're going to be sending it to at least some people. So it needs to be something that's easy. It's great when it has tons of color and stuff online. But then if you're printing it that way, are you guys printing it in color every time? And if so, yeah, how does that look? Okay, that's really helpful. Karen, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm the editor of the Capitol Hill Village newsletter, the one that you said looked really fancy. Unfortunately, my graphics person who knows what program we use isn't on. But just a couple of points. And you did mention the layout, and I am in alliance with your idea that it's hard to follow when you're reading it online. And we did make one change, and that is we avoid jumps. We try very hard to only off page 1 do we jump, and if it's the other jump, it goes right to the next page. We do also print out about a quarter of our membership gets it, and they request it that way. Yes, it is in black and white, and also it's always a few days late. And so when people complain to me, I say, well, if you read it online, it wouldn't be late. But it's a challenge for us on readership and promotion. One of the things that we do is when it's published and posted, we used to put out just a notice, but now we put out a longer notice, and we highlight 4 or 5 of the main stories to get them interested. A promotion piece. Because one of the problems is, and I know I do this myself, I scroll through stuff and I see stuff and I don't have time to read that, or I just delete it. And so the online, I'm an old print journalist, and so it's very hard for me to deal with this online stuff. But there's a problem with permanence and all of that. And it's just a constant thing. And the other thing somebody mentioned about surveying or figuring out what people need. And that to me is one of our big challenges is how do we find out what is the best way to communicate? How do our members get communications? How do they want to get communications? And surveys are really hard, but I feel like we're kind of flying in the dark, and we're doing what we think makes sense. So I'm very interested if anybody has any ideas about how you survey to get an idea of what type of communications you should be using.
I love that. And thank you so much to Capitol Hill for sending the newsletters to us to put in the shared folder, because I think it's a really great example, inspirational for people. And this is a great question on how to survey. I'm going to make a note here. Kelly, go ahead.
I was just curious if anybody, I know mailing's so expensive now. Does anybody have a nonprofit bulk permit, or are they buying nonprofit stamps? And are they saving a lot by doing that? For the ones that do get mailed.
Somebody raised their hand on that. We looked into it early on and decided it wasn't worth the cost for the bulk permit license. But is there anybody here that is doing it? That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, because since we're only doing a handful of people that don't use email, I feel
Yeah.
like Alexandria at home had one, and they were using it maybe for their fundraising. I don't know if anybody's here from there. Karen, go ahead.
Well, we actually have people deliver it. And it's a good way for people to get out and get a little movement and meet people. And so, now we're on Capitol Hill, so we've got a pretty tight location. We're not, spread out that much, but that's how we deliver. I'm pretty sure we don't mail anything because it's too expensive.
Susan, you can go ahead and unmute.
Hi, so I'm with the North Bethesda Village, and we don't mail our newsletter at all. It's all by email through MailChimp, and we do use the MailChimp template, which is, not great, but allows us to do pictures and graphics, and people seem to like it. But I'm also the editor of my neighborhood association, the Lux Manor Citizens Association newsletter, and we do mail that to about 1,000 households, and we have a nonprofit bulk mailing permit, except that we find we often don't end up using it because we're in a hurry to publish, and nonprofit mail goes even slower than traditional snail mail. So if you're going to do it, just be prepared. It takes a long time to get delivered.
Yes, I've heard that. And I feel like Alexandria had mentioned that if it's something important that they want people to see, they won't use that because I guess it's marked differently. They want an actual stamp on it so that people won't think it's junk mail. So I thought that was interesting. Okay, I got two other people. Patty, go ahead. Okay. You'll have to unmute. Patty, you'll have to unmute.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, hi. I'm with Rap at Home in Rappahannock County, Virginia. We're not too far outside DC. We're a rural community. We do have a bulk permit because we send out monthly postcards with our events on it. They're designed for people to put on their fridge, and just be reminded of that. And we send out between 600 and 700 every month. And those have been very popular, and having the bulk permit does save us some money. Our email, we've now gone, our newsletter, we've now gone to a monthly newsletter, emailed, and it's much more newsy than it was before. The other one was more like a bulletin board, and we were not getting a good open rate. So that's what we're doing.
Great. Thank you. That's helpful. I saw a question in here which is related to last couple comments about how people know whether their newsletter is being read or not. And so for us, we email the PDF out via Club Express, and I can see who has opened it. And for people that use MailChimp and stuff like that, I know that there's some way for you to get like a percentage rate of open. I did hear from another village director that those numbers are not reliable because it will tell you that it's read if somebody interacts, depending on what subscription you have. It may tell you that it's read with somebody interacted with it, which includes deleting it. So you might be getting high read rates and they aren't actually opening it. And since we don't use those, I'm not exactly clear how that works. So does somebody else have information on how they find out whether their newsletters are read? Any tips there?
This is Layla, we use the same as what other people, MailChimp, and we understand the inaccuracy of that, but something that we are finding out more and more, and I'm assuming other villages face this, members use their mobile phones far more than they use computers. So trying to make sure that everything is formatted such that it is easily readable from somebody's cell phone. If Katie could go over that later for Canva.
Yeah.
But it's critically important these days.
That's super important. I know Club Express has templates and ways to check that if you're reading it on a portable device, and sometimes it's an iPad, but more often a phone, that it's actually readable. And I don't know how to use those. Trish, go ahead.
Good morning. This is great, Elizabeth. I mean, this interaction just shows that there's such a need for communication tools. And I can't remember who it was who was talking all about how do you reach them and survey and this and that. I think that deserves its own
Yes.
discussion point, because that's a whole nother can of worms. I did want to say about MailChimp, I'm not their salesperson, but their open rates are misleading perhaps, but they have a feature called, that's the click rate. So you can see who's actually opening, what they're opening, why that is interesting to them. It really does drill down a little bit. And I think just for basic numbers, again, I'm not their salesperson, but I am a big fan of it for that kind of metrics data.
Yeah, that's a really good detail there. Okay, this is wonderful. Let's see, we've spent a half hour on this. I want to give Katie at least a half hour to go through Canva and have time for questions. And then I'm going to take a couple minutes at the end to talk about, get feedback on topics we want to take in the future. So on the which type of newsletter program or any specific questions on there, does anybody else have anything they want to ask or contribute? In the recording, the chat is also going to be accessible. I highly recommend reading that and keeping that because it has a lot. I've repeated things, tried to, but there's a lot in there. Anybody else? Eddie, you're asking about a member who has a flip phone. I think that person just needs to get delivered to them a hard copy because I have no idea how they would read it. Yeah, and so here, this is still on the topic of how do we know it's read? And I want to say the same thing that Leslie Pay said. I regularly have my members say, "Oh, I didn't know about that," or complaining when it was in an email and a newsletter. And I mean, this is not a village problem. This is a modern life problem. I mean, from all of my other hats, PTA, etc., the volume of emails that people get, they just do not see everything. Or if they see it and they read it, like Karen was saying earlier, oh, I don't have time, you put it aside and it's lost in that email inbox. So if people see, if I get RSVPs and stuff, I know that people are reading something. We try multiple avenues for the same. If it's of an important event or an important issue, I send something more than once. And honestly, we find within our own village, which is fairly small, that the main way that people get their information is through emails from other members. So we have members themselves that are running a program and they email out to their email list. People open those. They may not open something from me or from Club Express, but so we try more than one avenue. And I see people saying the same thing here. Okay. This is awesome, and we will definitely have time to talk more about how-tos on newsletters. But I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Katie. Thank you so much. Katie, in addition to being a board member with Village Support Network, she assists the City of Rockville Villages Coordinator, Trish Evans, who is here with us, and that's how I got introduced to Katie. So she does that on a part-time basis. And that supports 12 villages at varying stages of development. And so she knows the villages have been using Canva and that it's useful, and has put together a presentation for us on behalf of Village Support Network. So thank you so much for your time, Katie, and for coming.
Thanks for having me, Elizabeth. Can everybody hear me all right? Awesome. Perfect. All right. You've already stumped me with one question. So it's going to require some more research on my end, but let me start sharing my presentation for you all. And what we're going to do today, we're going to have this presentation going, but there are going to be some moments where I pop out of the presentation mode. Then you get to see what Canva sort of looks like from the inside. And we will go into some of the other features. I'll show you how to find those newsletters. We'll go through some links that I find helpful. And throughout, if you have questions, definitely please feel free to raise your hand, pop the question in the chat. I'll lean on Elizabeth to keep an eye on some of that, but I will also try to keep an eye on it too, so that we can answer them as we go along. And let's see, let me go to my first slide right here. Let's see. Oh, all right. So our agenda for today, I'm going to give you a quick introduction on Village Support Network. Elizabeth did a great job of giving us an intro to it. I'll give you a little bit more information about some of the services that they provide. We'll then jump right into the Canva overview, which a lot of the questions that we had, including that nonprofit account, will be in that Canva overview and in the account setup. We'll go into newsletter templates so that you can see where you're going to find those in Canva and how you might use them. We'll go into some other uses of Canva that I found very, very useful, both working with the City of Rockville Villages and Village Support Network. A couple of my tips and tricks won't be exhaustive because I think this might require similarly another whole discussion on Canva itself if there wants to be more training in that department. And then we'll have time for a Q&A at the end. So, all right, let's jump on in. Just to give you a super quick overview, the Village Support Network is as Elizabeth mentioned, it used to be called RAVE. It was founded in 2017 to help the Rockville City villages. And in 2024, we ended up changing the name to Village Support Network to be more encompassing. So we wanted to ensure that it wasn't just the Rockville villages that we were supporting. We wanted to show that we also had funds to support the Montgomery County villages. And the hope is, I think, over time to continue to expand out of that with funding that we receive through grants and other opportunities such as donations to help developing and vulnerable villages by offering tailored operational support to ensure sustainable growth and success. So I've got a link in here. You'll get these, as Elizabeth mentioned, you'll get these slides in our follow-up. So you can always go back in here and click on any of the live links, which I know is a question in the chat. So we'll come back to that shortly. VSN offers collateral, insurance, and technology. So we have funding for villages within Montgomery County to do those things. We have consultants that can help with logo design and website development. And we also offer workshops and resources like this one that we're partnering with Wave so that we can give you the tools and the information that you're looking for to help your developing village, no matter what stage you are actually at. All right, I see a couple in the chat. Are we still good? Okay, perfect. All right. So, as Elizabeth mentioned, Canva is an online graphic design tool with desktop and mobile capabilities. So the question that stumped me, Layla, you did a great job of stumping me with your question about how do you tell and see if it's going to show up well on a mobile format. Initially in my brain, what I'm thinking is that on the mobile app, you'll be able to check some of those things and see a little bit better about how your design is showing up. But that's on my to-do list to follow up, and I'll get you guys some additional answers. I think the other item that you brought up, Layla, about the accessibility, I have a page that we'll look at in just a second that does have all this information about accessibility, not just for those who need additional accessibility help, but I think it will also guide us on that mobile view of these items. So Canva can help your village in a lot of ways. I really enjoy it. I've worked with InDesign and the Adobe Suite before when I worked in restaurants and I was creating menus and things like that. But I found that it's a very, very finicky tool. And sometimes you have to have, extra skills and graphic design experience. I have not found that with Canva. If you can work in Microsoft Word, I find many times a lot of the icons and graphics that you're going to click on in Canva are very similar to Microsoft Word. And so it's intuitive in that way. One of the other really big benefits that I find with Canva is that it's a one-stop shop. You are not necessarily going to get the highest grade quality that you would out of some of these Photoshop programs for the imagery. I agree with that because when you go to print, you need to make sure you've got the right settings selected, which we'll talk about later in this presentation. But I do find that for general things like newsletters, the quality is great. You can then turn it into a business card. Simplistic graphics really do translate well in Canva as long as you're checking the color format of it before you go to print. There's real-time collaboration options in Canva, which is really great. If you have a team, especially if you have one of those nonprofit accounts, you can go in and collaborate in the same moment. Trish and I often do this with flyers. We jump in at the same time. We can make changes in real time, and then we can produce something together, even being miles away from each other. So real-time collaboration is really great. Having people be able to share those files with each other easily so that then they can go and look at them easily is, I mean, it's a time saver, right? Instead of sending emails back and forth constantly, they can just jump into that Canva account. You've got templates and stock images, which we'll look at shortly. You can also upload your own images, which is great. And then we do have multiple export formats, which I saw a lot of people noted in the chat, where you can have a PDF. We can change it into a JPEG. We can turn it into a PNG. We can turn it into a presentation like this one right here and run it live in PowerPoint, or run it on a video, which we've done before too. Video creation is it's a great tool in here. Again, it's not going to be your extraordinary product that you might create if you are an actual video editor, but it does work really well for small businesses and villages alike. So I am going to jump out of this screen real quick because I want to show you, oh, we went to the end. I want to show you a couple of links. So I've linked this in the presentation. One of the things I really like about Canva, and you'll hear me say this a lot, there are many things I really like about Canva, but one of the things is that there are a lot of educational tools, tutorials, things of that nature out there. So Canva has a design school, which you can actually go through courses in Canva, type in what you're looking for, just say maybe get started if you're unfamiliar. And they have courses that will walk you through with video tutorials showing you how to find the things that you're looking for. They also have Learn Canva, which is their blog. So if you're not really a video person and you prefer to read what you're looking for, Learn Canva is a great way to do it. I'm a big fan of learning from YouTube. Canva has a YouTube page as well. So there are many different ways to find the information that you're looking for as you're looking for it. So we'll click out of those. Like I said, we've got those right here, and we'll jump back into the presentation here. So we've talked about the cost. There is a Canva free version. The Canva free version tends to be pretty limited in its capabilities. A lot of times it's going to ask you to upgrade to that premium. And especially if you can qualify for that nonprofit account, I would highly recommend it, because the Canva Pro version is what you get when you qualify for that nonprofit account. And it has a lot of capabilities. You get all of the images for free. We'll look at some of the other premium account features that I think are game changers for what you're trying to do. Canva does have a Teams and Enterprise account, but I don't think any of these villages at this point need a Teams or Enterprise account. This is for much larger organizations. You won't qualify for that nonprofit account either. And with the nonprofit account, I'm looking at my notes real quick, it's up to 50 users for free. So when you qualify with the nonprofit, you can invite up to 50 people within your organization, which for most villages, I think should be more than enough for that collaborative, effort. Sign up's really easy. You just go to the Canva website. There's a couple different ways to sign up. You can sign up through Facebook. You can sign up through Gmail. I'd recommend, if you're doing it as a professional account, pick your professional, or the village account name and use that as the initial account, and then add your other users as you go along. I do have a link down here for that Canva for nonprofits. So when this goes out, if you've lost that link from the chat or elsewhere, it's right here. You can click on it and it gives you all the instructions, the eligibility requirements, etc. I will put a quick plug in. If you have any issues where you do not qualify for this nonprofit status account, reach out to the Village Support Network. We should be able to help, possibly with funding the effort to get Canva, or possibly helping you in other ways. So just keep that in mind. Check out if you do qualify, and if you don't, we'd be happy to hear from you. And I'll have those, I'll have our email in the last slide here. All right, let's get into it. So here is Canva. This is the home page that you will see when you log on. Here is your initial sidebar that you will see on the left-hand side if you're using the desktop version. So I took all of my screenshots just so that everybody is aware from the desktop version. I did grab screenshots and put them in here, not only so that it would make it easy to go back and reflect on this, this presentation when we're done, but also just in case anything happens with the internet. You know, you never know how things are going to work out for you. So in that sidebar, you've got a couple of different options. We've got our projects where you find your folders, your designs, your uploaded images. You've got a templates button. We'll look at this in a little bit. It gives you those templates where you can select a category or browse your pre-made templates. The brand, it's got that little icon there, which you'll see over here, I've noted, is premium content, which if you have the pro account, this will be included. You can build a brand kit. This may or may not be something that you would like to utilize over time. I'd recommend coming back to this as a secondary or tertiary thing to do. First, learn Canva, learn the things that you need, and then you can start creating your own templates and your own brand kits so that it can make it very easy for anyone in your organization to start creating collateral content, etc. Canva AI is pretty cool because you can create images, designs, documents, coding, all kinds of things. You just type in the search bar and let them know, this is what I want, and it will start auto-generating what you'd like through AI. The apps are really interesting too. There are a lot of Canva approved apps. The one I use the most frequently is actually the QR code generator, and I find it to be very useful. I think even for your email newsletters or other content that you're going to create through Canva, it can be very, very helpful. There are plenty of other apps in there that you can utilize, but that one is probably the one I use the most. And I threw a little tip at the bottom. It kind of goes without saying, but sometimes things that go without saying we tend to forget. Use folders to stay organized, especially if you're going to be collaborating with your colleagues and your fellow villagers. Staying organized is key, and anyone at the Village Support Network knows that I love folders and I love spreadsheets. So just one of my quick little tips there. All right, I'm going to pop out of here. This is where we jump into our newsletter templates. And I did want to answer, I wrote down a couple of things. I did want to answer one quick question about accessibility. So here we go. So here, and I'll add this to my presentation as well when we send out the slides. Here is just kind of the quick and skinny on how you can check the accessibility of your Canva presentations, your Canva newsletter, anything else. And like I said, I'll put this in there. I will also ensure that I add a little bit more information after I've done some more research on how to double check that your mobile versions are showing up just as well as your desktop versions are. So there's that. And then just to answer this quick question too, because I have it on my piece of paper right here. This was about the affinity merger with Canva. Yes, so Canva did purchase Affinity. It looks like they've also purchased a few other companies that were used overseas, European companies. And I'm not sure, I'll have to do a little bit more research for you all just to figure out who's going to take over what. But from what I could tell, Affinity seems like it was more of, it was a graphic design tool with even more capabilities basically, and probably was used a little bit more by graphic designers than just kind of your everyday lay person. So, all right, let's jump into the templates. Can everyone see the what will you design today? Awesome. All right. So there's a couple different ways to access your templates in Canva. You can go into the search bar and you can type in email newsletter. So I can search for that way. That brings up all these different email newsletters that exist already in Canva that have been created. There's a lot of them out there. You can create a blank one as well here. Another way to access this same exact information is on our sidebar over here. We've got the templates tab. Similar setup. I can click right here where I'm browsing by category. I can do the newsletter. what I like about going in on this sidebar setup is that when I'm in here, I can actually say theme or style. I could say I want a simple one. And that will start filtering out. I like the color, let's say gray, so I don't have to use a lot of printing colors. So it starts to filter in on what you can select from as a pre-made newsletter template. So the one that I actually did select for us to look at is this one right here. I'm going to switch screens on you. So here it is. Down at the bottom here, in that bottom right-hand area, you can actually make it a little bit bigger so that you can read what's going on. Are there any questions so far? I'll take a pause right here before we jump into this newsletter piece of it. Are there any questions so far?
There's one in the chat, but it might be for later. How do you deal with getting someone's permission to use images in a newsletter? This isn't specific to Canva, so I'll just let people respond in the chat on that.
Perfect. Thanks, Elizabeth. All right. So we've got a template that we like, but obviously it doesn't quite match what we want it to say. So we'll start with a couple of the buttons that I think are really useful. So one of the buttons that I think is really useful is this zoom button down here. Another one to keep in mind is that in Canva, it auto saves for you. But if you ever do need to go in, if you're a little bit worried, you can always save right here. So, oh, and I'm looking at my notes because the other big button that I wanted to make sure I told you all about is the undo button. Everyone wants to know where that button is, right? At least I do. So we've got colors. Say you've got a block that you want to change the color on. You click on what you want to change the color of. So here's a block that we could change the color. Here's the background that we could change the color. I'm going to change the block color. You would go in here. We can change it to that color. Say you would like to match a color with maybe a logo that you already have going on. Click on that color that you have. Click on this little pick a color button. Place it over what you'd like to change the color to. And there you have it. That's a really great one, especially if you've got a logo that you're trying to match the colors of. That's a fantastic tool to try and match those colors. For our text, a couple different ways to do this. I'll show you already existing text. So if I wanted to change this to the Village Support Network, I would just highlight where I'm at. Again, very, very similar to Word in a lot of the things that we're doing. Highlight it, change it. You can make it unitalicized. We can italicize it. We can make it bold. You can underline it. Many different options there. I can also change the font. So our font is up in here. If I wanted to change it to Oswald, there we are. Make it smaller, make it bigger, and so forth. There are some additional things that you can do with it. Again, very similar to Word. I could make it justified or aligned in one way, wherever I'd like to put it. You could make it a list or numbered, things of that nature. If I want to add more text somewhere, I can go over. So now, as you all have seen, we've got a couple more options over here than we had before when we were in our initial home page. You can grab the text box over here, so that third one down, and you can say add a text box. You can add a heading, make it a subheading, make it smaller. So there's a lot of different options in how you're adding it. And as you can see, one of the things that I really like about Canva that I think is one of the struggles with a program like Word is that you can't really move around text in the same way in Word, right? I mean, you can put tabs in and you can try and play as much as as it will allow you to, but it does not have the same functionality that this does, where I can just drag something to where I would like it. And Canva does let you know a lot of times, okay, I'm in the center of the page, I'm right dead on. So it's got a lot of those nice little graphic design features without becoming too cumbersome and too difficult to read, or, you know, the tools being too difficult to utilize. So there's that. Let's see, I think we got a few things in the chat here. Okay, there's the merger. Okay. Perfect. So another item that you can do in here, I'll get rid of my little text box. Another item you can do is you can add elements in here. If you wanted to add, we'll say holding hands. These are the many different options that you get when you go into the elements feature. The graphics are one that I use a lot. Click on it, put it in there. Many of the graphics have very similar, some of them are already, the colors are already selected for you. That's not a good example. Let's see. The colors are already selected for you. Not a good example. All of these, you can actually change the colors in. So you could go up here, I could change the color to that same color, and I've got it right there. So those elements are great. You've got graphics. You can add stock photos in there. You will see that little crown right there. That means we're working with a pro premium or premier item. And so you've got to have that pro account, or else you're going to have to upgrade and pay in order to use that. I will say over the years, I have found that Canva has included a lot more graphics that are premier in their eyes than they do have in the free version, but you can still find quite a bit in the free version if you're willing to be a little bit more flexible with what you're looking for. So those are our items there. That was to add in those elements there. Let me pop back into our slideshow real quick. Like I said, we're going in and out. All right, so that was our looking at the templates. We went through the match the colors. We went through the text changes, images. The one thing I did forget to show you how to do. So we already looked at the elements and those graphics or photos or videos or whatever you might want to load that is already stock with Canva. The thing I did not show you is if you would like to add your own images in there, you can add it there. So you would go into your uploads, this bar, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Under the uploads, you can upload the file yourself. Or if you already have uploaded it previously, it should be down here and you can select from there. I'll give you a little extra tip that I wasn't going to give you, but I like it. So I'm going to change the color of this background just so that you can see easily what I'm about to do. So I went in, I clicked on the full sheet, changed my background color. All right, I'm going to go back to my uploads. I'm going to add this logo that has white on the back of it. In those pro versions, you can actually remove the background, and then I don't have that white in the background. I will admit sometimes if the quality of the image isn't super high or you don't have very sharp edges to what you're working with, that tool can be hit or miss sometimes, but it's a great tool for these types of situations where you don't want to have that whole white background behind an image or behind a logo or behind something, and that gets you that. So that's just that background remover. There are many, many tools in here that I think are very useful, but again, we're going through that entry level kind of experience with Canva right now. So, all right, we added our images. So we figured out that we could do both stock images as well as our uploads. And then I will show you, so for our do-it-yourself, so say you don't really like this template. this isn't really working for you, you want to start from scratch on your own. You can absolutely do that. And one of the things, I put this here for a specific reason. Somebody asked earlier about links and having multiple links like I just did in our presentation. You can put that link in here. So I grabbed the city of Rockville as an example. Once you've put the link in and you've copied and pasted that link in, you can even change the name of the link. So I could put here in this text, if it's cooperating. So I could put city of Rockville here. And there's that. You can have multiple links. You would just do the same thing again and again, and you will have multiple links within whatever presentation, presentation, newsletter, etc., that you are trying to utilize. So I'm going to delete that for a minute. So here's a blank one. In order to get to this blank one, I'm going to go to our home screen here, and bear with me. I had it up, but now I don't. All right, here we're back to our home screen. We saw the way that we could go into our templates, and under the templates, we can create new. You can also go into this create button and you'll get another one. One of the beauties of Canva is there are many ways to access the same information, which I think has become more normalized as we've gone along, correct? We like many different ways to get to the same thing. So here is our new blank template. We're not going to go with the newsletter template that we initially thought about. So here's our design. Here's our templates. We didn't like any of them. We're going to go in and create our own. So we'll say, we'll put the Village Support Network up here. We'll add a shape. Look, it auto matched our color. Look how smart that program is. We will add some text. We'll fit it in. And so on and so forth. So that's how you would go about creating your own, using that new, it creates it based upon a email newsletter in the sizing, but then you have a completely blank template that then you can eventually save as a template to be used over and over again. And you can save as, copy it, save as, and keep using it to go forward. So there's that piece of it. Do we have any questions up to this point?
So, how to create columns and how do you migrate? This may be at the end, a quick question at the end. How would you migrate like a current version of a newsletter into a Canva template? And I think that would depend on what current thing it's being used in, whether it's Word or not. But there's another question. They currently have PDFs and they want to merge that into Canva.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth,
So
there have been several questions about how to keep links live, especially if you're taking something like this into MailChimp and the frustrations when the links disappear.
Yeah, they're referring to about photos specifically. If they are JPEGs in Canva, then they don't seem to work in MailChimp.
Interesting. Okay. So that's something that I'm not 100% familiar with. And the thing that I forgot to tell you all at the beginning of this is the expertise that I've gained over time, it comes from real world working with Canva. And much of it is, I'm a big YouTube person. I'm a big Googler. So there are sometimes things that I run into that I have absolutely no idea how to fix. But sometimes I find that with a quick Google, I can get down to the bottom of why that's happening. I do wonder if there is a functionality issue between MailChimp and Canva that is causing maybe that issue with the JPEGs. I know if you are trying to use a JPEG and put a link into that JPEG, you probably are going to have issues transferring it to another program from there. I'm actually going to write this one down because I think this goes into our accessibility as well. And I do have access to a MailChimp account that I can test some of this in. So putting that on my notes here. There was a question about columns. I'll go back to the question on columns and then we'll move forward. So let's go into our today is a great day. And if whoever it was wants to jump off mute, you're more than welcome to. My suggestion for creating columns is when you bring your text box in, you can make it as long or as short as you would like to make it. So we could create a column here by duplicating it. And we could have, let's see, and it'll tell me if I'm kind of on the mark here. Right there could be a solution to your columns question. So you could be column 1 and column 2. You could end up adding bullets to this if you wanted to. You could end up adding numbers to this if you wanted to. And again, your column could be larger if you wanted it to be larger, depending on what you're trying to add, make it smaller. So this is one of the best functionalities of Canva, is being able to create the sizing on the text boxes that you want and move them to where you want them to be. Let's see. So we had the columns question. We had the PDF question. I'll give my initial thought process, but I welcome anyone else to jump in and give their input or their expertise on it. One of the things I might do if I were trying to transition over from a PDF to Canva is I might suggest export your PDF as a JPEG. Once you've converted it to that JPEG, upload it in here into your images, and you might be able to kind of cut and paste from there. It will be one full image, but that might help with transitioning if you want to cut out imagery as you need it, or even to have it kind of side by side while you're working, and say you add another page and you can work from seeing it next to each other to then easily recreate it into a template that then will quickly be able to be exported. So I think that actually can bring us to our next slide, which will give us, and you see down here, I've got a link in here that will actually show you how to make your own template and save it under your nonprofits, or pardon me, under your village's account. Okay, let's go forward, and then I'm going to come backwards if that's okay, because I think some of the tips and tricks actually can be helpful with what we're talking about right now. So we'll go to the last one here, because I think this is something that's come up several times, and I think this is really, really important. And Elizabeth, definitely let me know if I'll try and wrap up within the next couple of minutes, because I think I've gone well over what we're looking at.
That's okay.
Here.
I would say keep going. We'll do 10 more minutes, including questions, and that will leave a few minutes at the end.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. So here we are with exporting designs. So we'll go back to that initial demo. In order to get your newsletter out of Canva, you're going to go over to this share button. There are a couple different ways to do this, but share is by far the one that I use the absolute most. You're going to go to download, and here it will give you the different file type options that you're looking for. When you are exporting as a PDF, my recommendation is to go with the PDF print. I know this one is for emailing. And if you have to, this is an absolutely fine option because I believe it compresses a little bit more so that it's easier to open up. But if you are looking at printing your newsletter to then give it out, this is a good way to at least double check that your colors are showing up the way that you want them to show up. So what I did there is I went to the PDF print. I then scrolled down to here, and this is one of those premier options. It's the best for professional printing. And so you want the CMYK. That will show you that once I download it, and it's going to take a second, that my colors that I am seeing here are actually going to show up. Well, of course it didn't work, right? There it is. My colors are actually showing up the way that I want them to show up. So that's helpful for those who are printing it, just to make sure that everything looks right. If you're not printing it, if you're just sending it out, downloading it and then putting it as that PDF standard for emailing is perfectly fine. If you're not super concerned about colors, etc. You've got other options for PNGs, JPEGs. Like I said before, you've got the MP4 videos that you can make presentations on, but this is where you are going to take that creation that you've made in Canva and you're going to send it out of Canva. The other two quick things that I will show you, I talked about apps before. I think that my favorite app in here is that QR code generator. This is very, very useful for, and we'll just grab one of these. Right there. You can change the colors on it. You can change the margins. You can do a lot of really cool stuff with that. And there I have a QR code that would take me to that nonprofit Canva article that they have in there. So there's that. The last thing that I will show you on these, let's see. Your head's going to spin, you know, with all the clicking back and forth. Initially I wanted to put a video in here, but I was very worried Zoom was not gonna be on board with that. All right, we'll go to the resize design. That's the other one I wanted to show you. So if you want to resize this, say you want to turn this into a business card, you can go in. They have pre-made templates, but if you don't find the size that you're looking for, you can always create your own custom size. That's great for creating flyers, for creating business cards, for creating anything else with the content that you have already made here. And so that will lead me to my last slide that we'll talk about here, which is the other things that you can do in Canva. This is not an extensive list. I've shown, we made this banner through Vistaprint, but we did the design through Canva. So that's something that you can do. There's, like I told you, I love that QR code generator, and that's what I utilize for doing this. Trish and I work with a lot of villages that need flyers, and so we do the flyers in Canva as well. But I mean, you can do brochures, business cards, any sort of signage, whether that's yard signage. You can work on your social media posts in there, and then it gives that same consistency that we've been talking about with the newsletters. Your website content, same thing. You're making sure that your marketing and your message are all consistent by using one tool that can pivot with you as you need to pivot. We use it for documents, presentations, spreadsheets, and that's my my spiel here. So we'll go to the Q&A and we'll wrap this all up.
Thank you so much, Katie. There were so many questions. A lot of them are very detailed, and individual members are responding in the chat, which is super helpful.
Awesome.
On some of these, because as Katie said, sometimes it takes somebody who's been in there doing it, and there's oftentimes YouTube videos that will help. So that's awesome. Let's take a few more minutes to take if you have general questions for Katie, and I'm going to read through here to see if there's something. Somebody asked, we're looking for a fillable form. Okay, Rappahannock at Home asked, we're looking for a fillable form app that will work with Canva and Club Express. Can you tell me more? What do you mean fillable form? Like for filling out a PDF, like for signatures and stuff? If you're still on here, I actually think they had to drop off. Yes, I think so. I don't know. Somebody can fill in on the chat if they have that. Somebody said they have a Canva newsletter and are wanting to put that into the Canva template. Katie, does that make sense? I don't know what that means.
I'm wondering if it's just a different format that
Carrie,
is just called the newsletter.
Carrie, go ahead.
Yeah.
Elaborate.
Sorry, getting off mute. So I love Canva. You've seen that in my prior chats. And I have a newsletter that I've designed, and I'd like to use one of the Canva templates, which I think is much more visually appealing. But I don't want to start from scratch. So is there a way I can take the newsletter that I have and migrate it into a Canva template so that I'm taking a Canva file or Canva newsletter and simply changing the template in which it's embedded? Does that make sense?
I think so. So what I would recommend, and you jump in and let me know if this is not what you're thinking. What I might recommend doing is, so you've already got one that's set up, like you said, right?
That's
and it's
correct.
already in Canva.
That's correct.
What I might recommend doing is, if there is a template that you really like, I might suggest add the page, get yourself to a blank page, and let's see if this works. So we should be able to go into design. We'll say that this was the one that we wanted to use. You should be able to grab that, and then you could migrate in the same document some of the things that you have going on down into this. I don't think there's necessarily anything like placing this over this won't necessarily solve your problem. I mean, you technically could do that, but I think that would just
so I do it sort of piece by piece, as opposed to I tried embedding the new template into the old newsletter. That doesn't work. And I tried embedding the old newsletter into the new template, and that doesn't work. So there's no shortcut here. That's fine.
I don't think so. I mean, I would highly recommend the quick Google as well, but I'm sure you've already Googled quite a bit to try and figure this out. Reddit's one of my other best friends too, is somebody on there might have figured out the workaround to be able to do that. But as far as I know,
I don't want to dominate, but I would say that the Canva help is absolutely fantastic. So I tried that first, but I'll try Googling. Thanks.
Of course.
And Trish, you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
I do. So to answer that question, Carrie, it might be that you have to take individual elements of your existing one. I don't know if this is a jive or not, but individual elements of your current newsletter, upload them, and then load them onto a new template, if that makes sense. I don't know if yours are easily grabbed and uploaded, the individual elements of your newsletter, like your headers and your logos and your stock footage, whatever, stock photos. So just thought that might solve a problem.
That makes sense. It is sort of the long way around, but I think it'll work. Thanks.
Okay, great. Yeah, and there was one clarifying question on the Canva. Canva Pro is available to nonprofits for free. I'm unclear because I've never done it, whether you have to do you have to go through and get approved? I don't know how to do that.
Okay. Yes, you do. And we've got the link in there. We can highlight that link too when this goes out as a follow-up, just so that everybody can easily access it. But there are some eligibility requirements, and there's an application process to it. But from what I've heard, I've not done it personally myself, but from what I've heard, it's a very simple process to do.
Elizabeth, it was very simple. We did it back when we were a new village. So we didn't have a whole extensive anything, and it was very straightforward.
Great, great. Okay, I'm going to jump into the very last thing, which is before you go, please put in the chat or go ahead and unmute yourself and let me know what future topics you would like to Wave to run for mutual support. What kinds of things can you learn about from other villages? What kinds of open discussions do you want to have? So go ahead and put that in there. And like I said, I will be saving this chat, which is super useful. And that, as well as an updated version of the slideshow and the recording, will be on Wave's website. So I'm already seeing people adding in things in the chat. Go ahead and type there or unmute yourself and let me know. All right, Trish, improving communication strategies. What does that mean? Do you mean the one that was mentioned before on how to best survey your members to figure out how they want to hear from us and communicate?
Yeah, I think so. And even beyond a survey, because then they still have to read the survey and respond. But I think a multi-pronged approach in terms of sharing ideas on, okay, well, this really works, but this doesn't. This really works. I don't think there's one size fits all. I think every organization out there has similar problems, like how do you reach everyone every time? But I think that it would be a worthy discussion to talk about the various ways, and then maybe, wow, this might work, and sort of a salad bar of communication ideas.
Yeah, I love that. We do send out a yearly survey, but of course, only the people that open my emails do that survey.
Exactly.
There was
Exactly.
another question about sharing newsletters. So I put that link in earlier, but we will include that link on the Wave website. So there is a shared folder with people who sent their newsletters in. If you hadn't already sent a copy of your newsletter, and please do, because seeing how different ones look is helpful, and I will add those, or we'll have Kim add those. So I put my email in the chat as well. Let's see. Anybody else?
Elizabeth, I put in the announcement for the WAVE conference. So I hope you're going to talk about that just a little bit.
Yes, I did at the beginning, but
Okay.
definitely go ahead and I did not see a registration button on the Wave website yet. It's October 14th. They told everybody to mark that in their calendars and that it would be in Silver Spring again, and to check their emails for when we have registration open. Is that correct?
Yes, and only because Kim's been on vacation, she'll get everything started as soon as she gets back.
Great.
Although we all know she's stuck in Canada.
Yes, yes, that is why I was I wasn't as good at monitoring everything as I would have been with two sets of eyeballs. Kim, our part-time staff for Wave, was stuck due to the Air Canada strike. And couldn't get back. So thank you all for bearing with me. Thanks everybody for coming. You can, like I said, email me your newsletters, but email me ideas as well. And then we take that to the board and we'll set up more future sessions.
And Elizabeth, I put in the chat that the Founders Award applications are open. Applications are due for Wave member villages September 22nd. So please go into that. And regarding the conference, also watch your emails, because we will be emailing out to you, because our knowledge comes from all of us working together. So there's an opportunity for you to participate in the sessions and be at the table in the sessions for presentations for the fall conference. So please watch your emails.
Yes,
And
double
Katie,
that.
Katie, this is Wendy. I sent you a private chat just to see if we can get you at the WAVE conference as well. Maybe another breakout on this subject, or just having a resource table where people
Thank
can come
you.
up to you with their one-off questions.
Thank you. I'm glad you pinged me, because I was looking at the regular chat, but I didn't look at my individual chat. So thank you, Wendy. I'll follow up with you. And I just wanted to say thank you, Wave, for having me. Thank you, Elizabeth, for doing such a great job monitoring and helping put this together. A big thank you to all of my fellow VSN board members, especially Leslie Mulligan helped me put this presentation together. So thank you all, and thank you all for being here today. It was really lovely being with you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, because we all love learning from each other. So I second Layla's recommendation. Please respond if you think that you can help by being on a panel like this. That's the best way to do it. Thanks everybody for your time, and we'll see you in October.